As I begin this morning, I want to sort of offer, I don't know what to call it, but maybe it's a disclaimer. To disclaim that while this is a beautiful place and a beautiful spot, and being outside in nature is a lovely experience, but I'm not going to be talking about lovely experiences necessarily. The topic of this day, this third Sunday in this series about practicing compassion, is about practicing compassion with difficult people. And this text that Jesus offers to us is a difficult passage. For me, it sucks. Just to put a truth on it. It's a hard one. And so, I don't claim in any way, shape, or form to be able to speak as well about this as I might like, but just imagine as we are in dialogue somehow together today that we accomplish something that is helpful, that is inspiring, that instructs and teaches and is useful to you today. May you be well, may you be happy, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you live with ease, may you live in peace. This blessing is the place to begin, and it's the blessing to end with when practicing compassion in our lives and in the world. Unfortunately, today we have more opportunity than ever to show compassion, to love each other who are closely related, and to love others we don't even know, much less to love those whom we see as difficult, whom we see as enemy. The range of relationships and events calling for compassion today in our lives is extremely wide. It seems to get wider and wider. From personal relationships and issues that happen between two people, me and you, that person and the other, two people in a family, or two people who really care about each other, or two people on the road between here and home in our cars. The range is also wide. Conflicts in an organization or in a congregation between one or more people. Gangs attacking each other in cities. National leaders blasting away at others with vile and insulting names. One person with an AR-15 automatic weapon shooting and killing groups of people in a school or a movie house or in a church in Charleston, South Carolina just a year ago, or in a nightclub. And on and on and on. Situations when compassion, and I would add courage, are called for. If peace and harmony are to reign in our lives. My friends, the fundamental question today might be is how are we going to respond to people who are difficult or who pose a threat to us, that are our enemy? Last Sunday, even by the end of worship, most of us, including myself, had not heard the awful news or had not taken note of the news that was out there in the world about what happened in Orlando, Florida. There had been a mass shooting and killing at the Pulse nightclub early Sunday morning. That ultimately 102 people were shot, 49 died, shot and killed by a lone gunman, Omar Mateen. His death made it 50 people who were died. And that's what we heard in the news. 50 people had been killed, but I live in that tension myself, and I don't know about you, but why did the number change? 50 people were killed, but it was, in the media, 49 shot by this person who got set aside. And we all have different views about that, and we live in that tension in different ways. But that's, I think, an issue for us that Jesus calls us to in this text. But 49 people were shot and killed, surpassing the number of people who were killed at Sandy Hook, 33 people. I'm sorry, at Virginia Tech in 2007, 33 people killed and dead, exceeding those killed at Sandy Hook by 20-year-old Adam Lanza, who fatally shot 20 children and 6 teachers and staff. Or 9 people who were killed in studying the Bible in Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, just a year ago this weekend. All these killings are horrific. They're awful. For many, and I'm one of them, people cannot get their heads around someone shooting dead 20 precious children. I don't know how you do that. Or in church, studying the Bible on a Thursday night. Or one entering a club where people in the LGBT community gather hoping more and more for sanctuary and safety and freedom and protection. Mass shooting made all the more horrific for many of us because we know that that nightclub was filled mostly with people of color, an item that had a characteristic that had not been talked about very much, and who were part of the LGBT community, the people we love and cherish and stand in solidarity. So we know this event of last Sunday is complex beyond the telling when it comes to how to respond, especially to the one who did the killing. People all over the world seem to know how to respond to the victims, thank God, and their friends and their family and community. Churches in Orlando that would not typically respond very supportively to this community, offering their churches and their pastors and their staff to come and to conduct free funerals. People reaching out of their comfort level in order to show compassion. It's a beautiful thing. JetBlue Airlines, for whatever reason, and you could be cynical and say, oh, for being good practices, are giving free tickets to family members who need to fly to Orlando. One flight in particular just honored the grandmother of victim Luis Omar Ocasio-Capo's grandmother when people discovered she was on the plane to go to see their family. And they all wrote filled pages with paragraphs of support and love for her. When she got off the plane, she had this beautiful card, these beautiful pages of greetings and offerings of love and support. People practicing compassion in wondrous ways, and not to belittle any of those acts of compassion. But Jesus in our text today might suggest that those are the easy things to do. I think he does say that. And he says that's not all we are called to do. Listen again to the text that John read. You're familiar with the old written law. Love your friend and its unwritten companion. Hate your enemy. I'm challenging that, Jesus says. I'm telling you to love your enemies. My God, Jesus. Really? Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the energies of prayer, for then you are working out of your true selves, your God-created selves. This is what God does. God gives God's best. The sun to warm and the rain to nourish, to everyone, regardless, the good and the bad, the nice and the nasty. If all you do is love the lovable, do you expect a bonus? Anybody can do that. If you simply say hello to those who greet you, do you expect a medal? Give me a break, Jesus says. Any run-of-the-mill sinner does that. In a word, what I'm saying is grow up. I heard you all chuckle before when John read that. No? You're kingdom people. Now live like it. Live out your God-created identity. Live generously and graciously toward others the way God lives toward you. I don't know about you, my friends, but I find this one of the most challenging, downright difficult, with not impossible commands or invitations or instructions that Jesus ever offers in the gospel. One might ask, does this, Howard or Beth, does this text preach? Does it preach? Does it inspire? Does it uplift? Does it transform? Does it instruct? Indeed, it does. Almost by itself. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In other words, show compassion to those who are difficult in your life. To those who are rude. What are the adjectives that we use? Obnoxious, rigid, insulting, mean, hurtful, even crazy, evil? Show compassion to them? Yes, evil and enemy enough that they might harm us emotionally, physically, draw guns and shoot and kill us. There's a whole range of adjectives we might use to describe those who are difficult in our lives, difficult in our communities and in our world, even in our churches. In essence, Jesus says it's easy to love those who treat us well. It's easy to get along with those who are cooperative and flexible and respectful and nice and loving. You know, adjectives we attribute to those we like and enjoy. Oh, I really like him. I like her. She's really a nice person. I can stand that person. They're so rude. You know? I shared 2 weeks ago the wisdom of the Dalai Lama, who says, what you wish to experience, provide to the other. I want to try to offer you a little bit different way to think about this, and that is to share your peace of mind. The peace of mind that we would hope to have this morning in this lovely spot. To share your peace of mind with the state of mind of the other. In other words, put it a different way, is don't let the state of mind of somebody else get tied up with your peace of mind. You may be more free then to respond to them with the energies of prayer, or to respond to them then in a way that promotes and invites what you would want back from them. The problem so often that we're dealing with difficult people is that the conflict between us can grow. You know, it expands. Each party, each side, if you will, escalates their response, mostly or sometimes in the negative. If you heard the adjectives I ascribed to those who are difficult, rude, obnoxious, rigid, insulting, mean, hurtful, and when we respond as defensive and frustrated and withdrawn, we tend to get louder, the more defensive we are, you know. I'm not yelling at you. The more we get frustrated and withdrawn and tend to get more of the offender ourselves. Let me offer a question for dealing with these people in our lives who are difficult. This is not my question, but a question of Bill Crawford, who is a psychologist, and you can see all kinds of tapes and things that he does on YouTube. He's a psychologist. He calls this his magic question for dealing with people who've hurt you, who have offended you, and who won't come to terms with you or won't even enter into some reconciliation in your life. And he says, on a scale from 1 to 10, how important is this person to you? On a scale from 1 to 10, how important do you want this person to be in your life? You know, the person who cuts you off on 29 coming to church on a Sunday morning, how important do you want them to be to you? Maybe a 1 for a moment, really? And if you think of it that way, isn't it easy to kind of let them go? Except we don't. For the next 20 miles, we drive and we get angrier and angrier. I've got a friend who just can't go there. That person becomes a 10 immediately, and oh my gosh. But if the person is your good friend or your spouse or sibling or someone that you've been friends with for a long time, then on the scale from 1 to 10, they may be an 8 or a 9 or a 10 of importance. And then our response is likely to be different. And the indifference or continued resistance to our offers sometimes even for forgiveness or to accept your loving compassion can be more and more painful and more stressful. So I know a number of you, and in conversation before this Sunday, I talked about that. Said, there's this person in my life, and I've tried everything, and it's gone on for years, and 5 years or longer, and what do I do? And I've been thinking about that all week as I've been thinking about this sermon and about talking about this with you this morning. May I suggest that no matter how important another person is to you, if you allow their state of mind to be tied or even define your peace of mind, then you will find it harder and harder to be compassionate and loving. In AA, we have a saying that's quite relevant. Don't let somebody live rent-free in your head. Don't let another person live rent-free in your head or in your heart. When I was interim at another church, a previous church, about 6 months into it, and this is about the time it can happen sometimes in interims, the church started to push back on me some. And they began not to trust some of what I was saying to them, and we began to have this struggle. And the president of one of the groups I was working with was really pushing back. And I was driving to the annual meeting of the Central Atlantic Conference, and on the bridge going across Susquehanna River, this person living full-time in my head, rent-free, with all kinds of amenities, that I was giving up. And I thought about it. What in the world are you doing, Jared? So I opened the windows of my pickup, and I just said, go for a swim. Get out of my head. And I prayed about that and thought about that and kept thinking that way. And it worked. I was able to go back and engage this person in a different way. I was different, and I gave to him as best I could what I was hoping and expecting for him, and we got through it. We got through it. We'll be talking more about this in July when we talk about a series on forgiveness, because forgiveness and compassion, dealing with difficult people, are all tied up very much together, and I'm very aware of that. I'm very aware of that. I've talked to some of you and some of the groups I've been working with in the church about accountability. When someone hurts us or harms us, or breaks the law, or does something really evil, Mateen Omar, if he had not been shot and killed, would have been held accountable and brought to justice, and people would be clamoring for that. So people who hurt us have accountability, and they need to be held accountable in some way or another. Holding each other accountable is when we act badly, is important. Showing compassion while still expecting others who've broken your trust to work or to regain or to re-earn your trust is important. If that doesn't ever happen, then it's indeed possible that these broken relationships will remain broken or frayed for a long time, forever. I thought about this week, and then I found that text in the 18th chapter of Matthew where Peter asked Jesus, how many times do we forgive, Lord? 7? Wouldn't 7 be enough, Jesus? A couple translations say 70 times, say 77. But the original translation is not that. It's 490 times, because Jesus said 70 times 7. Have you ever forgiven someone 490 times and feel like I'm at the end of my rope? I can't do it anymore. I didn't write this down, but I then remember Jesus' instruction to the disciples when they said, he sent them in the communities and they were rejected by people, that he said, knock the dust off your feet and move on. Well, my friends, as important a person might be to you, and they might be a 10, sometimes we have nothing more to do. And let them go for a swim or someplace. Continue to love them and hold them in your heart. Maybe 490 times you've shown compassion and tried to achieve some form of coming together. Maybe the best we can do is not allow the worst thing that person has done to us to define us, or to define them for that matter, because there may be place for grace in that. In the bulletin, if you would find your bulletin, I want to take a minute. I thought I might take a little bit of liberty with time this morning since we're here. I know you're probably getting hungry or whatever. But I wrote out a guided meditation that I thought at first would just be useful for you to take home with you, and that you could use this week in your meditations or in your devotions or in your time when you're thinking about someone who's difficult. But I'd like to take a few minutes. I just take the liberty of our talk, walking through this very briefly, and invite you, as it feels okay for you, and only if it feels okay for you in the moment, to think of someone who is difficult for you to deal with, if you hadn't already been thinking of that person by now. Known or maybe even unknown to you. Just to think of that person, name them, possibly identify them in your mind. Identify what it is about this person that is difficult for you. And it's always good to keep yourself safe. You don't have to go into as much depth and detail of remembering that as you might otherwise do, but stay true to yourself. Imagine for a moment holding that difficulty in your hands in front of you. Holding that difficulty in the palms of your hands together in front of you in a gentle way with grace. And then imagine that this person might be suffering also, struggling in some way, hurting also. Imagine that this person does not want to suffer, wants to be happy and safe. And say in your mind to this person, may you be free of suffering. May you be free from the causes of suffering. And now imagine this feeling of compassion moving out from you, from the palms of your hands, from your heart, to this person. And imagine a feeling of caring and love coming to you from this person back to you. Imagine what that might feel like. Imagine this feeling of compassion spreading to everyone in this space this morning. And greater than that, imagine to be compassionate to this person or anyone. You need and have to be compassionate to everyone. May you be well. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. May you live in peace. May it be so for you this day and for me as well. Amen.